Hello, I am Chauncey DeVega. You may recognize my voice from Ring of Fire Radio with Mike Papantonio, the BBC, Sirius XM, or the Tom Hartman Radio Show. And you may have read some of my essays at places like Salon and Alternate. I would like to thank all of you for listening to, downloading, tweeting, and sharing the eponymously named podcast known as The Chauncey DeVega Show.
And they ran a story by somebody named Chauncey DeVega.
Quote, I find black garbage pail kids, black conservatives, fascinating.
It's just unbelievable. You know,
he goes by the name of Chauncey DeVega.
You know, I've been called Uncle Tom, Oreo, sellout, shameless, but this is a new one.
Well, let's talk now to Chauncey DeVega.
As my man Chauncey DeVega of the blog We Are Respectable Negroes says,
I have author and blogger Chauncey DeVega here with us.
Hello! Really cool episode coming up here on the Chauncey DeVega Show. First of all, I want to thank all the friends, supporters, and boosters of the Chauncey DeVega Show. As folks likely know, it has been a very interesting week around here. Very, very, very interesting week. And that's me shifting gears, as you can hear, going from the opening hello to the serious voice. So, folks know that we had that horrible incident with ISIS last week. And as I try to do, always trying to just speak a little truth to power, I wrote what I thought was a very matter-of-fact and basic post here on ChaunceyDeVega.com, shared it on Daily Kos. Eventually, Alternate picked it up. The BBC mentioned it, Ebony Magazine. A lot of other folks picked it up, asked for permission to republish it, about ISIS and their horrific burning alive murder of a Jordanian fighter pilot. Just a horrific thing to do to another human being. And I said, looking at the news media coverage and all these talking head types on the news saying, oh my God, this is unimaginable, this is unconscionable. How can any human being burn somebody alive? This is the worst thing we've ever seen. ISIS, they're barbarians, they're monsters, this has never been seen before. Well, I listened to that, and like other folks did as well. We'll talk about who those folks were. I said, what a crock of malarkey, bovine scatology. The United States had a long history of burning black people alive, torturing black people, killing black people, dismembering black bodies. And for somebody to sit up on national television and to say that what ISIS did is some outlier that has never before been seen is just it stretches all credulity. It's a lie. It's a slap in the face. I wrote a very basic post, and it's funny when you write something and you share it online or in other venues. It's very often the thing that you think is the most obvious and plain, matter-of-fact bit of truth-telling that people react to both positively and negatively, and with orders of magnitude that you never would have imagined. So I wrote the piece on ISIS and the burning alive murder and killing of black Americans. And also, we have a great report we'll talk about that just came out, some really cool research that the New York Times actually talked about today, about also how lynching, of course, was white on black racial terrorism, but as folks who are scholars of violence in the United States know, Hispanics and Latinos in Mexico were also lynched, in California. And we'll talk about all that. So lo and behold, I post that late Wednesday, early Thursday. I wake up, and folks are losing their natural minds. Truly losing their natural minds. And I'm reading some of these comments and saying, goodness gracious, I know our public schools are failing. I know about the myopia of whiteness. I know that whiteness imagines itself as benign, neutral, good, and innocent. But this is just unthinkable stuff. So I want to thank again all the smart, forward-thinking, intelligent folk of conscience, many of them are our white brothers and sisters, and who sent emails of love and support for my truth-telling to cancel out some of the deranged emails I received. So as of now, that piece, which is up on Alternate, still the most read piece, up on the Daily Kos, probably one of their most popular pieces of all time. ChaunceyDeVega.com, one of our most popular pieces, has at least, and that's directly from the site, 145,000 Facebook shares. That's quite a few eyes on that. I mean, quite a few. That went around the world. Twitter, thousands of shares and mentions. Instagram, same. It's weird because you don't want attention for talking about horrible, horrific things. I mean, it's a weird thing because social media encourages folk to reach out for attention. That's the whole point. It's like, look at me, look at me, look at me. And now the trick is, do you use that? And how do you use it to do some truth-telling? Or how to awaken people's consciences? And I hope I did that a little bit. But again, I want to thank all the folks who sent love and positive energy. So it's interesting as well about, again, the very basic observation that ISIS are a bunch of thug, barbarian murderers. That's what they are. But the fact that they're Islamic or Muslim in quotation marks has nothing to do with their thuggery and murder. Christians were killing each other. ISIS is up there killing other Muslims. The KKK, here's an interesting statistic I brought up in one of these conversations online. So there's a website, Religious News Network, I believe, and they had a really interesting piece trying to measure, in a very sort of superficial way, comparative rates of violence across different religions. And of course, you have to control for time, culture. I mean, there are folks who spend their lives studying violence. It's really interesting. People in IR, anthropologists, sociologists, and so on, who study cultures of violence and why states fight and comparative levels of killing and murder. It's really dark stuff when you get into the metrics of it. It takes a very special personality to maintain their critical distance while talking about such matters. So apparently, if you look at some of these Pew surveys and other surveys, that roughly about, and I'm guesstimating here, this is from memory, about 12% of the Muslim world in these surveys support radicalized political terrorism and violence. And roughly the same, if not a little higher, like 12 to 15% of white folk, white men, were members of the KKK at its height. Think about that. Isn't it interesting about thinking about these percentages of an aggregate group that are participating in political violence? So Obama, matter-of-fact observation, the man is a lawyer. If you look at his syllabus, he actually had some students when he was teaching law school read about lynchings and spectacular violence against the black body, black communities. Well, he points out the matter-of-fact reality that, Islam does not have a monopoly on violence. People lose their damn minds. You would have thought he did that skit in Chappelle where he pulled out an alien. Because, the white reaction is going to hate him anyway. They hate the fact that he's black. They hate the fact that he's a Democrat. They hate the fact that he's better than them and he's smarter than them. These right, white-wing, mouth-breathing troglodytes, of course, are going to hate everything the man says, because people are profoundly ignorant. I dare say stupid in many cases. I don't like to use that word, but it's a type of cultivated stupidity. So, of course, you can't mention Christianity, violence, and murder. Oh, no, no one's ever been killed in the name of Christianity. They didn't fight crusades and fight each other in hundreds and hundreds of years of war. They didn't hold up the Bible as they enslaved people. Bartholomew de las Casas, anybody? So, of course, that didn't happen. They lose their minds. Bill Moyers. Smart man. Intelligent man. Hate to see that he's retiring. He writes a piece very similar to mine about the lynching of Jesse Washington. Wonderful, wonderful piece. And if you want to see the proverbial car bomb, or pipe bomb rather, in the CM Punk style, you said, I'll go over to Daily Kos and read my two pieces. One, the original one on lynchings and ISIS, and then the follow-up that I wrote about what I learned about racism and liberal racism on Daily Kos. People lost their minds about that too. They love Bill Moyers. That's a white man telling them something in a voice that they want to hear. Because it's not true, and I made this joke, unless a white man says it. I think Paul Mooney or Richard Pryor actually said that. So, Bill Moyers tells some truth. Lo and behold, Richard Cohen, who writes for the Washington Post, not known to be a liberal or progressive, he writes a great piece saying, you know what, America, look in your own house if you're going to talk about burning people alive and violence. No religion has a monopoly on violence. And even he calls out really, really, precise writing, very direct, about the lynchings of black folk in this country by white people. And then we have the coup de grace. So we have the horrible ISIS murder, my piece and others written about it, connecting it to lynching. Then we have the coup de grace about a great new report. New York Times wrote about it. Not, however, unproblematically. We can talk about that a little bit, too, about how the Times writes about lynchings. It doesn't mention that white people are the lynchers. Talk about racial erasure. They eventually, the next day, issued a redaction. They didn't correct the original article. They had a letter from the editorial team unsigned, saying yes, obviously, saying yes, white people did lynch black people. Better late than never. But the whole point about the myopia of the white racial frame and whiteness still holds. So the EJI, which is a great group, the Equal Justice Initiative, they issued a comprehensive report, Lynching in America, Confronting the Legacy of Racial Terror. They update the Tuskegee research, trying to chronicle and document thousands of lynchings in this country of whites on blacks. And it's just some raw truth. And some of the accounts, I'm reading online people's responses to it. I don't know, again, if it's just failing schools or willful ignorance, but some of the responses from some of our white brothers and sisters, and some ignorant black people too, saying, my God, I never imagined something like this could happen. I never imagined that someone like Sam Hose or Jesse Washington or Claude McNeil would be burned alive, their eyes gouged out, their body parts cut off, forced to eat their own genitals before they're killed, that there would be parties, 10,000 people showing up to attend an announced lynching, and that you'd have postcards, pictures drawn, souvenirs of this sort of barbarism. So they've just, Brother Brian Stevenson, I'm going to try to get him actually on the podcast. I sent out a missive, an email, sent out the carrier pigeon to say, Brother Stevenson, let's sit down and chop it up. We got to talk about this. So I just did that. And if you haven't read the report, do check it out. Again, it's the Equal Justice Initiative's report. You've heard a lot about it. He's making his rounds. He's on Democracy Now! MSNBC. So it's been hard doing some truth telling, and I wish we had other things to talk about. But again, it's just, You never know. You never know. And the other thing, we talk about armor, spiritual armor that people wear. And I can't imagine what the Freedom Riders went through, the real soldiers on the front lines dealing with overt, gross, violent white supremacy. Those are true warriors, white, black, and brown, male and female, straight and gay, Christian, Jewish, and other faiths too. So cyber racism is real, and I have a great guest coming up. In a few weeks, we're going to be talking about cyber racism. She's from the great website Racism Review, so she and I are going to be chopping it up. But it's funny how you get all these hate mails. And I look at some of them. I don't want to encourage these knuckleheads, but you got to. Sometimes it's just curiosity. I'm interested in the different styles of hate mails and the different ways that the white supremacist mind works. I always go back to Brother Naeem Akbar, and I talked about this a few podcast episodes ago on a appearance I did on a show that shall not be named. That Brother Naeem Akbar, psychologist and psychiatrist, he has 2 degrees. Brother Akbar famously said in this interview, he's like, when you're a person of color living in a society steeped in white supremacy, where there are active white supremacists, I'm not talking about some implicit bias stuff. That'd kill you too. I'm talking about active white supremacists who are active and engaged and thinking about this stuff in the foreground of their minds, not the backgrounds, not the subconscious. He said, you got to understand white racism and white racists. And this is very important. He says that if you're dealing with someone who's a racist because they're ignorant, well, you can help them. They can be educated. You can help them. You can just give them information. Teach them. That's a powerful, powerful curative, palliative, powerful medicine for dealing with the ignorant white supremacists, assuming they want to learn. Once you get through all their BS and their barriers, you deal with them. Now, there are other racists. Deranged, pathological white racists, these white supremacists. Well, as Brother Naeem Akbar says, the only thing you can do is these people will hurt you. They will hurt your family. They will hurt your community. They will visit violence upon you. They will hurt you emotionally. And you have 2 options. Ignore them and avoid them if you can. Leave them alone. But never compromise your manhood and your personal integrity and self-respect. But sometimes you have to be prepared to protect yourself, to render violence on them before they render violence on you. And I always keep that in mind, Brother Naeem Akbar. He said, be peaceful. Ignore these people if you can. Avoid them if it's ever possible without compromising your personal integrity. But realize some of them are just sick. And the only thing to do is to render violence upon them. Or in anticipation, be prepared for their violence so you can avoid it. And that's just the truth. So that's how you keep your mental and spiritual armor up. So I want to thank Naeem Akbar for that teaching, boy. Because when you read some of this stuff these people write and what they say online, go to their websites, they're in an alternate reality. Truly, an alternate reality. I mean, they're in a trough urinal and they're playing with their own political feces. And they've convinced themselves that they're clean and that their hands are not dirty. So one of the ways that I like to refresh the palate, of course, is with Coca-Cola. High fructose corn syrup. It's poison. I know it's killing me. It's killing me. I know I'm an addict. And my dentist is laughing. He's like, dude, you spent thousands of dollars fixing your teeth. Why are you up here drinking soda? I'm sick. Laughing and having a self-deprecating moment. But when we deal with these serious matters of hatred, of white supremacy, of violence, of man's capacity for inhumanity to man, sometimes you just got to elevate it. You got to go to positive energy. You got to smile. Do the things that you like. And one of the things I like to do to raise my energy, I like to read about animals and happy animal stories. So I'm going to do something a little different for the intro to this great episode of the Chauncey DeVega Show. I'm going to read you a story, a very quick news item about man-animal friendship. Human-animal, meaning our domestic and wildlife animal friends, winged fishes, 4-legged, 2-legged, those that slither, all sorts of beautiful animal friends fly in the sky. About a wonderful act of kindness between a man and penguins. And it's not that sort of act of kindness. I know there's some perverts out there thinking about something I did not intend. So here's just a wonderful story as we clean our palate from all the wickedness and meanness that's out there in the ether this week. So my reading voice, hopefully I'll get this right, my reading voice here. So the headline, this is from the Huffington Post. I'm sure they got it from somewhere else. Maybe they didn't. Who knows? And the title is, Australia's oldest man knits tiny sweaters for penguins injured in oil spills. Isn't that nice? And it's from HuffPo, and the writer is Ryan Grenoble. So I will read, and there's some wonderful pictures here of penguins in sweaters. I'm already smiling. When disaster strikes, the wildlife clinic at the Phillip Island Nature Park will be ready, equipped to deploy hundreds of tiny wool sweaters at a moment's notice. Not tiny sweaters for people, but penguins. knit by a group of volunteers that includes Alfie Date, who at 109 years of age is Australia's oldest man. Date told Australia's 9 MSN he started knitting the easy single rib and double rib sweaters shortly after moving to a retirement home in southwest Australia. After learning he could knit, 2 nurses who knew of the program, known as Knits for Nature, approached him to gauge his interest. Date said, adding, "I'm a sucker!" In the event of an oil spill near Phillip Island's 32,000 little penguins, wildlife clinic workers put oil-covered birds in sweaters to minimize the amount of oil they ingest while preening themselves. According to the Phillip Island Penguin Foundation, the substance also mats the penguin's feathers, which both prevents it from regulating its temperature and reduces the animal's buoyancy in water. Following a spill near Phillip Island in 2001, 483 little penguins ended up at the rehabilitation center, with 96% ultimately being released back into the wild. At this time, the center does not need any more penguin sweaters. What a nice story. Isn't that nice? We got the penguins and the sweaters, and I swear these penguins are happy. They're styling and profiling, and they just look so joyous. So you see, you put good energy out into the world, good energy comes back at you. And I'm just smiling. Look at these little penguins. And again, you can find it at the Huffington Post. You can just Google it. Australia's oldest man sweaters, penguins in oil. It'll come up. And you got the little guys posing. I don't see any of them wearing a Patriot sweater. Well, they don't need any more sweaters. I'm going to show them a Patriot sweater, though. But it's just a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful story. So, that promo, that animal story concluded. We got a really cool podcast. I'm smiling again as I think about this. I'm a huge fan of her work. And I talked to her, as I said, wonderful actress several months ago when her TV show was on. So, for this episode of the Chauncey DeVega Show, I had the great opportunity to talk with April Parker Jones. You probably have seen her on the Oprah Winfrey Network show, If Loving You Is Wrong, one of their most popular shows. She has a hell of a resume, number one. She's been in a lot of different things. I was also excited to talk to her because she was on one of my favorite TV shows, Jericho. Any Jericho fans out there? And Jericho's awesome, too, because you got the U.S. being invaded. You've got the Oh Nuts campaign, or the Nuts campaign to get the show back on the air. People sending peanuts into the TV network. And as I said, April Parker Jones is really, really cool, folks. She's so generous. She was so kind. She's also been on Scandal. I don't watch that show, but she's been on Scandal. She's had parts on The Young and the Restless, 90210, The Unit, Foster's on ABC Family, NCIS, Miami, ER, Lost, Chicago Code, and several others. So she also has some she jokes, very, very minor part. You blink and you miss her, but she jokes about, she's so self-deprecating about also being in Spider-Man 3. So she has a lot of cool stuff going on. But that Oprah Winfrey show, If Loving You Is Wrong, as I said, check it out. And she's a recurring character on the show. So she kindly shared with me, with you, about her life, about work, about Hollywood. We talked about Jericho. And I asked about the man, the one and only, he whose name shall not be named in some circles, the one and only Tyler Perry, and her interview with him, and how she got on If Loving You Is Wrong. So here on the Chauncey DeVega Show, we try to mix it up, doing different things, entertaining things, smart things, with interesting and smart people doing interesting and smart things. I won't keep saying that often because this is my Paul Heyman-esque promo for the next few weeks, and I'll find something else to say after that. So I do think you're going to enjoy the show. She's so generous. She's so kind. And again, I sit down with April Parker Jones, and we talk about her life and career here on the Chauncey DeVega Show. Hello, April. How are you doing today?
I'm doing excellent, Chauncey. How are you doing over there in the Windy City?
Well, the Windy City's not too windy today. It's nice. I went to the lake and I fed the seagulls and the birds. I saved up my bread and my potato chips. If I ever die in here, they'll think I'm a hoarder because I got all this bread I've been saving in a garbage bag. So I go to the lake.
You save your bread and chips and things and go feed the animals at the lake. That is so sweet.
Yeah, and I throw it up in the air. I got my seagulls trained. They know they got to work for their food. So I throw it up in the air and they got to catch it.
That is so cool. And I imagine it's pretty therapeutic for you too. Is it, Chauncey?
It's zen. It's a nice moment. But I got to tell you, these seagulls are catching up. You know, they say ravens and crows have, the vocabulary of a 6-year-old. So I know they're talking about us. But I swear, the seagulls see me coming. They're like, there's that fool feeding us today. And he better have enough. He better have enough for us.
That's right. That's right. Oh, thanks, Chauncey. Thanks for having me on your show.
Absolutely. It's appreciated. So tell me about your new TV show, If Loving You Is Wrong, on the Oprah Winfrey Network. How's that going?
Oh, it's going excellent. It's If Loving You Is Wrong. The show airs every Tuesday night. Hey, that's tonight. Every Tuesday night at 9 p.m. on the Oprah Winfrey Network. And it's going better than I could have imagined. The first week, Chauncey, of the premiere of the show actually broke some records. It broke the record for the most viewers on the Oprah Winfrey Network for a premiere episode. So that was a wonderful way to get started with the show, and it seems to be doing well. I live tweet, right? Every Tuesday we live tweet, so I've gotten a chance to kind of hear what the viewers have to say via tweet, and then I can respond. So that's fun, and people really seem to be into it. They really seem to be invested in the show, and there have even been some groups on Facebook started. One is called "Addicted to If Loving You Is Wrong." So the show is doing a lot right, and I'm just really, really proud to be a part of it.
Now, how did the show come together? I'm always interested in folks who listen to the podcast series know in process. So how does this actually come to be? Your agent reaches out, you send out the scripts come back to you.
Yeah.
You saw the role and you immediately said, yes, I want to do this?
Something like that. You have to go through an audition process. So what happened with me was my manager at the time, he was still my manager, sent me the breakdown for the show. And the breakdown basically includes a description of all the characters. He then asked me, well, which character do you connect with, April? And I said, Natalie. So along with the help of my agent and my manager, they set up the the audition. And I go in, it's a regular audition like any other audition. You normally you put yourself on tape, they put you on tape, and then if they like you, they'll call you in for a callback. So about a week later, I got a call back, and this time they said the producers and Tyler Perry would be in the room. So I went back for the callback. I auditioned for the producers and Tyler Perry. And about another week or so after that, I actually got a call, and they told me that I did not book the role. Yeah, so naturally I was disappointed. But they said that Tyler Perry really liked me, and that they had another part in mind. So I came back for a third callback, anticipating that I would be reading for the other role that they had in mind for me. But they had me read for Natalie again. And it was after that third callback that they decided to cast me as Natalie, and I'm so grateful because she's the character who I connected with initially and still connect with, and she's so much like me in so many ways, and she's so much like so many women in my life, and I think that's the beauty of Natalie, that she's just so relatable, and I think women find that to be refreshing to be able to see this type of character on TV.
And what about her resonated with you? What about her when you say, what, this is me? I can go and I can emote and I can put myself in this person's space.
Absolutely. She is a mom. I too am a mom. Natalie has 4 children by 3 different men. I don't have 4 children by 3 different men, but I do have 2 children by 2 different men. She is a single mom. I'm no longer a single mom, but I was at one point. She's a very hard worker. She's very prideful, very strong, very resilient. She likes to kind of be a martyr. Basically, she wants to do everything herself without kind of allowing anybody to come in and give her help. And I'm the same way to a certain extent. It's funny because I try to give each character that I play a voice, and relate them to somebody in my real life. And with Natalie, I didn't give her anybody's voice except my own. Basically, the voice that I give Natalie is the same voice that I talk to at home with my husband. So it wasn't really a stretch. It was so cool. Because really, to be honest with you, Chauncey, I've never had an opportunity to play a role like Natalie, in the sense of it wasn't a stretch at all. A lot of the roles I play are doctors or maybe a scientist or a principal. These women in positions of authority, and Natalie is although she's very strong, she's not that. So it was awesome to be able to just bring truth to her through my own life experiences. It's been great, man. It's so funny because a lot of the people who know me and who watch the show goes, April, that's you. And they're right. It is me. And I'm so glad that Tyler Perry saw that too, because just another little quick tidbit before we go on. When I initially did not get the role, I remember at the second callback, Tyler Perry saying, April, I knew as soon as you walked through the door that you were not this character. You don't look like this character, and as a director, as a writer, I already have an image in my mind of how I want these how I envision these characters to look. And you don't look like her. You don't look like her. And so when I did not get the part initially, I go, okay, well, he did say I didn't look like her. But then to come back and read again for her and to finally book it, I just feel like it was my destiny to play this role. And I'm so very proud of Tyler Perry for kind of going against what he had envisioned and taking a chance on me and on this character and allowing me to bring truth to this character. It's a joy. I'm having a blast, man.
Yeah, I'm wondering. I always, try to ask the actors and actresses and musicians and other folks I'm lucky enough to talk to here on the podcast, and also folks I know in my own life who are involved in the creative arts. Is it easier to play someone like you, or is it easier to play someone who's fundamentally not like you?
Well, I guess it's easier to play somebody who's like you if you know who you are. Mm-hmm. Really, because we're, look, I'm 38 years old. I've been through a bunch of stuff. I've experienced life. I've had children. I've had relationships. So, I'm starting to really know who I am as a person. I mean, I'm just really kind of just getting to that place. So I guess to answer your question, if you know who you are, then yeah, I would imagine, at least for me, yes, it's easier to just be yourself and to give life to any character, but with the essence of who you are. And that makes it so cool because, hey, there's nobody else like you. You are uniquely you. No one else can duplicate you. So if you can truly and honestly go into an audition and be yourself, you're going to be set apart from everybody else because, nobody else can be you. So yes, to answer your question, if you know who you are, yes, I think it is easy to play a character that is similar to you.
I forgot who said it. I mean, there's some version of if all the world is a stage, there's no one better cast than me to play myself.
Oh, there you go.
There you go. I mean, that was some wisdom we picked up somewhere along the way.
I love it.
I tried to internalize it. And I have to ask, what was it like to, again, I was trying to get the visual here, to go and sit in the room with Tyler Perry? What was his energy like? And do you still get nervous? You're like, oh my goodness, I'm actually going to meet, Tyler Perry or meet another director or writer. I'm going to work on their project. Do you still get the butterflies?
Oh my gosh. Listen, Chauncey, I actually have the butterflies talking to you right now. No,
I feel humble.
No, really, I do. I mean, of course, you still get nervous. I don't think that energy ever goes away, especially for artists because, we're so hard on ourselves, man. We just always want to be, well, let me not speak for anybody else. I always want to be better than I was yesterday, and in that quest of being better, yes, you get nervous. I've always been a kind of a people pleaser and wanted everybody to like me growing up. And so, having that pressure on yourself, yes, of course. To answer your question about how it was to meet Tyler Perry, yes, I was extremely nervous because I knew beforehand too that he was going to be at the callback. They told us in the breakdown, your callback will be with the producers and Tyler Perry. So I had already had a couple of days to kind of prepare myself for that encounter. But I was also prepared with the work. I was prepared with my audition material. And look, when you're prepared, you can be more confident. That certainly does help you be able to control the nervous energy, but absolutely I was nervous. And yes, to answer your other part of the question about how was he, amazingly down to earth, very approachable, just the energy was awesome. And I didn't really know what to expect, to be honest with you, but I certainly did feel at ease. He almost kind of feels like a brother, like a family member, and at least that's the energy that he brings, and I appreciate that, and it certainly makes it easier to work when I'm on set.
And I have this odd sort of schizophrenic response to him. I have so much respect
right.
for his success and for his hard work, because you can't say the man didn't go out there and bust his behind.
Right.
And pay his dues.
That's right.
And believe in his work.
That's right.
But on the other hand, you have this other tension. I think Spike Lee was a wee bit unfair in his own sort of curmudgeon-y way when he called out Tyler Perry, and he famously said Tyler Perry's work is quote unquote is buffoonery and foolishness. And I said, well, maybe Tyler's body of work is not for everybody. There's no accounting for taste.
Right.
But like when you're sitting there talking to him, do you think Tyler Perry is unfairly criticized for, like, for example, his Medea characters? Because now he's branching out and now he's doing different types of roles. The title of the movie will escape me. I think the most recent movie is called Gone Baby or Gone Girl.
Gone Girl, yeah.
Yeah, Gone Girl, which I saw was very interesting, very good movie. I actually want to go back and read the book. And I was like, well, Tyler Perry certainly seems to be broadening his scope, his characters, And I would like to believe that he's trying to respond to some of the criticism he's received about his earlier work in the way that it distorts, some would argue, and misrepresents African Americans and black folks more generally. I mean, do you think he gets a bum rap? Are people being unfair to him? Or?
Well, look, listen, everybody's entitled to their opinion naturally. But yes, I do think he's getting an unfair rap. I had my opinions before working with him too. My husband had his opinions. After having a chance to see how he is, how his work ethic is. I mean, listen, this man writes, produces, and he directs every episode of his TV shows. He was there every day for all the 20 episodes that we shot, directing these things. And you're thinking about, oh my gosh, all the characters that he's got to have in his head. Listen, regardless of what people think about this guy, he's got a formula. He's got a formula, and he's got a loyal audience base. I saw it when I went home. I'm from North Carolina. I went home last week for my 20th year class reunion. There I go, aging myself again. And just the overwhelming love and support of people on the East Coast who are diehard, loyal Tyler Perry fans was just intoxicating, man. I went to the football game and I could barely take 2 steps without somebody stopping me to tell me how much they were fans of Tyler Perry, how much they were fans of the show. So regardless of what the other people have to say about his work, he's doing something that it's an audience for it. And he's got a formula, and like you said, he's starting to branch out. I know he's got to hear what the critics have to say, and but I am so super proud of what he's doing, and I think we all could kind of take a page out of Tyler Perry's book on not worrying about what the naysayers have to say, and just if you have a dream or an aspiration or goal, just going out and doing it. Because if you keep listening to the negative folks, you won't get anything done. My goodness. And I saw it firsthand. So I'm just really, really, really proud to witness it myself. Every day going on to the set in Atlanta, to the Tyler Perry Studios, Chauncey, my goodness, every time I would walk through the gates, man, and just walk down the hall to my dressing room, and I would look around and see the black cinema, posters of black cinema on the walls, just the way that the actors were accommodated, the professionalism by every hand involved. And then everywhere I turned, I would see beautiful black people. Everywhere I turned, with their walkie-talkies on, making sure I had what I needed. I've never witnessed anything like that in Los Angeles. I've been out here for 10 years, man. So to see black people doing it, and apparently we've been doing it for a while like that in Atlanta, was so, it was so refreshing. I was blown away and full of pride. I'm so proud.
There's a long, as I'm sure you're very well aware of this, a long, long, long tradition of African American and black cinema and theater.
Yes.
That the general public is not aware of.
Yeah.
Where folks are treated with respect and dignity and are professionals.
Absolutely.
You and I roughly are the same age. I just had my 20th high school reunion.
You did?
Yeah, so when you went back to your reunion, I didn't go to mine, but when you went back to yours, how many people have you discovered who are now all of a sudden your friends? You walk back there and they're like, oh, my best friend, April Parker, April. How many new folks have you discovered, your new best friends, when you went back there?
Oh, man, look, everybody gave me so much love. And the ones who said that they were my friends have been my friends. Look, I went to an all-black high school in Durham, North Carolina, Chauncey, and we all were really like best friends. So to see those people again, some 20 years later, it was so awesome and nostalgic, and just so overwhelmingly full of love and support. It was great. I mean, we had a connection 20 years ago, and so that connection will never be lost. But yeah, it was a lot of love, a lot of picture taking, and people asking me to sign autographs. They made me feel like a celebrity, and it was just, I was blown away. I couldn't even equate the amount of love and support that I got, but it was just, it felt so good to know that people are so supportive of what I'm doing, and they know because they've seen my journey. I've been acting since I was 5 years old. So these are people who saw me grow up, and they grow up in the theater and have this dream, and always saying, I'm going to be an actress, I'm going to move to New York. And so to see for those people from my hometown to see that dreams begin to manifest, it was pride for them too, I'm sure.
So they were happy for you. And I'm sure, of course, there were haters, psychic vampires, the naysayers, who will pretend that they always had your back. We know they're out there. They're like, you ain't going to make it. Why are you going up there? Crabs in a barrel. But, you have more folks than not, sending you that positive energy. And it's just wonderful. You can get their affirmation. They feel like they succeeded through you.
Absolutely.
So you mentioned the theater. I mean, you've had a wonderful career. As I said, you worked in theater, TV, and major Hollywood films. What has that transition been like?
Oh man, it's just been such an awesome journey of self-discovery. Theater has always been this really cool outlet for me. It's been an outlet for me to just kind of channel, some of the emotions that I've had to deal with, growing up. My mom, it was four of us in a house, my two sisters and a brother, and my mom was a single mom for a while, for most of our growing up life. And so the things that we, had to encounter, and some of the struggles and some of the triumphs, theater was such a great way to kind of channel those emotions for me. It was a freedom for me. I found my freedom on the stage. So to be able to transition, to be able to use my theater training and transition to out here to Hollywood, to film and television, I feel like it was necessary. I feel like had it not been for theater, I would not have been able to transition so smoothly into film and television. It gave me the foundation that I feel like my career needed. I tell anybody whenever anybody asks me, well, my daughter wants to be an actress or my son wants to be an actress. How do I get started? How do I get them started? And I always say, look, start by doing theater, man. Go to do your plays at church. Join the youth theater troops in your community. Start by doing plays. Learn the history of theater. Learn how to navigate through the stage. Learn lighting and stage management and costume, not just acting. Learn all aspects of it, because there's such a richness in the history of the stage, and it'll always be my first love. But yep, it was a great transition. The journey's been awesome.
How was it going from the immediate reaction of being on stage to then having to work in front of the camera, and then having the reaction obviously be mediated, because you don't see the folks who are watching a film or watching a TV show. They're at home or they're in the movie theater. How did you manage that transition and that difference in energy?
Really good question, Chauncey. It was kind of tough, initially, because you didn't get the energy and the praise from the audience, which was, your way of saying, your way of being validated. For me, I just had to kind of live in that moment. So when the director calls action, it was just me and the other actor who I was with, and that was our stage, and we had to feed off of each other, and not necessarily the camera people and the directors and the producers who were standing in the background. So yeah, that part was tough. It was a journey of learning how to kind of block the camera people out and just live directly in the moment with that other actor. And that just takes practice, man. It takes practice and focus and concentration and dedication. And it takes completely losing yourself and putting that fear to the side and just saying, you know what, I'm going to just go for it and live in this moment. But and I'm still learning how to do this, man. Listen, the really good actors make this thing look easy, but it's really not. It's really, really challenging. It's really, really tough. They just make it look easy. So I got a long way to go. I'm still just really kind of, even though I've been out here 10 years, I'm still really learning how this film and TV thing works. I find it quite challenging, but that challenge doesn't scare me enough to stop doing it. I'm intrigued by the challenge, and I can't wait to see where my career takes me on this journey. But it is quite challenging at times.
What was it like the first time you were on camera, either on TV or film? What was going through your mind? Were you scared?
Well,
were you nervous?
First, I did a short film prior to moving to LA, but my first job that I booked with my agent was Spider-Man 3, Chauncey, and I had I had one line, two words, and you better believe.
What were they? Do you remember?
Chauncey, I'm finna tell you right now. Those two words were, I played a lab tech. It was like the part right before that guy turns into the Sandman or whatever. So if you go back and look at it, just don't blink when they show the lab techs, and you'll see me. And my lines were, "Capacitors charged." My daughter's laughing, but those are my two words. And I remember just being so nervous and going, "Oh my gosh, the camera's on me! Don't mess it up!" Of course, there was a feeling of exhilaration and just nervous energy. But you know what? You get through it and you do it. And when you get through it, you go, okay.
And how many times did you practice that? Were you driving around saying capacitors charged? Were you in your suite trying different
more
versions
than you
of
know,
it?
man. More than you know. I can't even remember. It was so long ago, but more than you know. But that was that certainly set the wheels in motion. Those two words right there, because you know what it did. Booking Spider-Man 3 gave me the validation that I needed. That it gave me the okay that you know what, you are where you're supposed to be. You moved all the way out here from Durham, North Carolina to Hollywood, away from your family, and you're on the right track. So I needed that to happen, and I'm very proud of my lab tech role. Thank you very much, Justice.
Justice agrees too. She's like,
Yes,
that was
she
a good
does.
role, Mom. Do you watch yourself on television? Because I know there are a lot of actors and actresses who won't watch their TV performances or their movies. They're like, when it's done, and they don't like seeing themselves. Do you watch yourself often just to study your performance, or is it in the can, it's done, you don't want to see yourself? Like, how do you manage that?
Just leave it in the can and just kind of walk away, because I'm telling you, I do watch myself and I cringe every time. And and it's tough, but I think for me in my journey as an artist, I do feel like it's necessary for me to watch myself, to look at my facial expressions, to see if I'm doing too much or too little. So I can get better. Yeah, I do. I don't watch it a whole lot. I don't go back, and I do have some of the stuff DVR'd, but I don't really go back and watch it too much. I'll watch it when the show airs, and kind of that's the extent of it. But yeah, it's tough. I mean, it's tough to watch yourself on TV, especially if you're, like I said, as artists, we're so critical on ourselves. We're so critical of ourselves, and for me, like I said, I've always kind of wanted to be a people pleaser, and you want to be, I'm a woman. I want to look pretty and desirable on TV, but a lot of the roles I play just don't lend to that. They don't lend. They don't lend to the beautiful scenes, or the kind of the leading lady, cute, tight, Sex in the City clothes. I may be wearing a lab coat, or playing the FBI agent, and so I go, gosh, when is it going to be my turn to be pretty? I'm already pretty. That was really sweet. Thank you. So,
and I have to co-sign as well. I think your husband and your fans, everybody else, will be like, so self-deprecating. It takes a lot of confidence to be that self-deprecating and transparent.
Oh, well, I'm working on it, Chauncey. I'm a work in progress, my friend. So, but yes, to answer your question, I do watch myself and cringe just about every time. But there's those moments too, Chauncey, where I go, hey, you know what? That wasn't so bad. I'm getting better, and I can appreciate that. I appreciate being able to see myself and to work on improving.
I mean, we know that Hollywood is very unfair to women in particular in terms of how they're represented, their options in terms of performance, and Hollywood eats people up and spits them out in general. And I'm just wondering, how have you been able to maintain your longevity in a business that, number one, as I said, is rather cruel, and in terms of women, is always looking for that new face, and limits the types of roles very often that women can play. So how have you managed to, as I said, you have such a broad range of the types of roles you play. Well, how did you navigate that?
Gosh, you're absolutely right about the kind of the unfairness in Hollywood, and my way of navigating that is just kind of staying the course. I know that I've been gifted to do this. I know that it's part of my purpose here on this earth. I have other purposes, but I know that being an actress is part of that purpose. So I navigate it by just having a relationship with my creator and having faith and knowing that I was created to do this. And when you're created to do something, you're probably a lot like Tyler Perry. When you're created to do something, you do it. You don't look too far down the line, and you don't worry about what, oh my gosh, I'm a woman, I'm getting older, there's going to be less roles for women. You just kind of equip yourself with this supernatural faith, and you say, you know what, I'm going to live in this moment, I'm going to do what I've been purposed to do, and I know, and I'm going to let the chips fall where they may. I do, also believe, that I have other gifts and talents too that will be able to sustain me, financially, to help me take care of my family. Because listen, if anybody knows, we don't have control in this Hollywood thing, and that can be very scary. So in knowing that, I make sure that there are other things that I can do to be able to keep food on the table. You know, my husband's a fitness minister. I just got certified myself as a personal trainer. So we have a health and wellness business here that we do. Look, right before I booked this show, I was nannying full time. I braid hair, and I plan on teaching. I plan on using what I'm learning in Hollywood and being of service to the young people around here and back in my hometown and teach, because I don't believe I believe that we are all multifaceted, in our talents. So that's how I've been able to kind of survive and navigate these Hollywood waters. And it's also because I'm older. Listen, I was almost 30 when I moved out here. So it wasn't like I've kind of I've been out here since a teenager and grown up in Hollywood. I kind of got a late start. That I appreciate the late start because it allowed a certain level of maturity when encountering the animal, the beast of Hollywood. I get it. And my mind's mature enough to be able to handle it too. I can appreciate, I appreciate being married, because there's certain things that, I won't do. There's certain roles that that I'm not even, that my, agent and manager not even submit me for. There's certain things that I just won't do. And I'm grateful for that. 10 years ago, I probably would have.
And it's funny you mentioned that. I was thinking about Morgan Freeman's career. He didn't get started until his late 40s, early 50s.
Yeah.
And I think he did community theater. And I was listening to an interview he did, and he said, yeah, I was going to be a livery driver and drive limos if this thing didn't work out. And he's like, I always knew I could do something else, but I wanted to try this acting thing. It's like, I wasn't going to go crazy. I wasn't going to kill myself. And I went out there, and it's like, I was lucky enough that it worked out.
It worked out. And me too, man. Look, as soon as I moved here, I was lucky enough to get an agent, without any film or TV experience. All I had was my theater experience. And I was lucky enough that a friend referred me to her agency. They let me audition and pretty much signed me on the spot. It was luck, which is basically just timing and opportunity, meeting. Everybody's journey doesn't happen that way. So, but been very fortunate. Look, this is my first series regular role. Let me just put that out there. It's been 10 years since I've been out here, but this is my very first series regular role. Although I was on almost every episode of Jericho, I was not a series regular on Jericho, but I had been fortunate enough to be able to maintain an artistic career out here. So I'm just really grateful for this journey, man. And I feel confident that this is still just the beginning. I do feel like the best is still yet to come.
And you mentioned the types of roles you wouldn't take, and I so appreciate that honesty and transparency. And I saw Edward James Olmos, the legendary actor Edward James Olmos. I always like to put the legend before because he certainly has earned it. And I was lucky enough to ask him a question at a panel discussion. And I asked him, I was like, what advice do you have for young actors of color, blacks, Latinos, First Nations brothers and sisters, and others about the types of roles they're offered? And he said something very wise. He paused. So I was like, okay, that's a good question. He's thinking. And he looked and he said, you know what? On one hand, you got to eat. And you're a hungry young actor, actress. You have to eat. But on the other hand, you have an obligation to yourself. And he's like, you have to think about it and say, okay, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, will I be embarrassed that I took that role as a caricature, as a stereotype, as a cartoon character? And he said, that's how you have to decide. And I pushed him a little bit. I was like, well, what particular advice would you give? And he said, maintain your self-respect, but also understand you still have to pay dues. But he's like, once you go down that road of taking these types of roles, it's going to follow you. And you have to acknowledge that and own it, because you may end up in a place that you don't want to be.
Who wants that? That was really good advice from the legendary Edward James Olmos. Yeah, I mean, he's absolutely right. That's why, like I said, I'm just so grateful to kind of have gotten a what some may call a later start in this industry, because it's allowed me to see that. I mean, listen, having kids, I have a 5-year-old and a 15-year-old, Chauncey. I have a 15-year-old too, and they're both girls. They're already so bombarded with the oversexed woman on TV and the music and the music videos. I see it every day when I drop my daughter off to school, man. So, I know that the pressures that teenagers more specifically has on her, to kind of be, what it is, the guys want, and to succumb to peer pressure. So, imagine if her mom were playing these type of roles too, you know, and then she'd go, well, my mom's doing it, so I guess it's okay. But for her to see me in these positions of leadership and, you know, women of authority figures. Natalie, you know, a strong woman who's you know, taking care of her 4 kids, you know, who works and has never been on welfare. That's important for my 5-year-old, my 15-year-old to see. I did a short film maybe 2 years ago, directed by Chad Boseman. You all know Chad Boseman from 42 and the James Brown. Yep, it was his directorial debut. Okay. It's called Heaven. It's about a prostitute, and I played Heaven. You know, she was a overage prostitute, and there was some. It's a short about prostitution. So of course there were some things and some issues that we had to tackle in this short film. But you know, in something like that, I had an opportunity to have my say so and how much I wanted to show or what I wanted to do. You know, so something like that. You know, when you have that some sort of creative control and you have a say so, you know, that makes a difference. But 9 times out of 10 in Hollywood, you know, if you're not going to do what the role asks for you to do, they'll just replace you with somebody else.
Get out the door. We'll find somebody else who's willing to compromise and sacrifice their personal integrity for this opportunity. Thinking about that, the role as a sex worker, as a prostitute, perhaps the challenge, and you can correct me if I'm wrong here, is you want to humanize that character, but you don't want to sensationalize the character.
And that's exactly what we were able to do. We humanized her, but we didn't sensationalize her, and I'm very proud of that work. You know, and as a matter of fact, my 15-year-old daughter was in the short also. She played me in a flashback scene. So it was done very tastefully and very artfully. So for that type of art, absolutely. It can be a scary type of waters to navigate, especially when you like the legendary Edward James Olmos said, when you want to eat, you know, when you feel like this might be that the role that's going to take my career to the next level. Yeah, and it just might. But at what cost?
And that's the question. At what cost? You know, what cost for your dignity and for your soul? But since you mentioned Jericho, and we open with Jericho,
yes,
I have to ask you about this show and the fan response, because Jericho is going to be a show that years from now, folks are going to still be talking about. Yeah. In terms of its popularity, how many shows were saved by people sending in bags of peanuts and demanding that there is some closure? And then, as you know, the show had a comic book.
Yeah.
To finally bring closure to what happened with the characters there. I mean, it was smartly written, it was provocative, it was entertaining, had some great acting, and that's, as I said, that's how I discovered your work. I was like, whoa, you on the show were just great. And also your husband, who's now on The Walking Dead.
Yes.
With the brother's name, Lenny James?
Lenny James, yes.
Yeah, he was amazing, and now he's on The Walking Dead.
Yeah.
And I remember watching the show with a friend. We watch every week, hang out, and get some, you know, my chosen meal was chicken pita with some Coca-Cola. Folks know about my addiction to high fructose corn syrup products. So you can give me a lecture about the health consequences of a personal trainer. So that would be my drink and my meal of choice with some barbecue sauce and some hot sauce. And we would sit there and watch Jericho. And then my friends would call and be like, well, what do you think about this scenario? It's like, it's just fun. So you had a lot of dignity in terms of, as an outlier, you and Lenny James's role. You weren't clowns. You weren't playing the type. You were serious, dignified people who happened to be black. And they were just, as I said, wonderful, wonderful characters. What was it like being on the set? Do you still get fan mail? What was it like working with Lenny James? What were your experiences with the show?
Man, that experience, Chauncey, changed my life. You know what? I don't even think I realized what type of history we were making as this whole thing was going on, too. I know I didn't realize it until maybe a couple of years later, you know, and fast forward, even till now, I still get fan mail. You know, I still get fan mail. I'll get, you know, emails. People will write letters to my agent. I mean, from all over the world, not just in the United States, Chauncey, but from all over the world. What was it like? It changed my life. It was my first kind of consistent work on TV. My character was only supposed to be in one episode. I remember going to this audition. It was just a co-star role. Darcy Hawkins. She had 2 lines in the second episode. So sure, I just moved to LA. I was just thrilled to be on a major network show. So week after week, I would get a call from my agent. Oh, they want you back for the next episode. Oh, they wrote you some more for the next episode. Oh, they want you back again. Oh, okay. So it was so part of my destiny, and it was so part of just my journey and learning how TV work. Like I said before that, I didn't know even how television worked. I'd only done theater. So I can remember days on set with Lenny and him literally having to grab me by my shoulders and move me. No, the camera's here. Stand here. No, April, look, that's camera B over there. Look here. It was like school for me. It was like hands-on education, and it changed my life. It gave me so much confidence. And then to see the awesome kind of cult following the show had, I couldn't believe it. I was blown away. And I'm still very sad when I think about how great the show was and how it was cut way too soon.
It was.
Way too soon. So, but so Lenny, some of the people in the when I ever see some of the other actors from the show, we still have that connection, and who knows what the future will hold. But I do tell you that it changed my life and it taught me so much, and that experience I will forever be grateful for.
What was it like on that last day when you found out the show was going to be canceled? And then what was it like when you found out it was canceled and then renewed because of the fans? And then, again, it has even more closure. We're like, okay, we'll give you a few episodes to try to wrap things up.
Yeah.
But you shut down the set. You say your goodbyes. What was that emotional journey like?
It was really, really sad. But I think that we all kind of felt like it wasn't over yet. We were all still holding on to this hope that something still is going to come from this, and I think that's what helped to make it a little bit easier, because we really didn't feel like it was the end. So yeah, it was sad, but it was also sad with like I said, just with the hope that something else will come of it. Now, I know you mentioned a comic book, and I have to be honest with you, I've yet to see the comic book.
Oh, yeah. So, the comic book came out. It's about, I think it's 6 issues. It basically wraps up the story.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to have to go. Is Darcy in it?
I don't know if she's in it because I just found out about the comic, so I will be getting it.
Okay, okay.
But it's certainly not hard to find. It was on a major press, and it was actually written by the writers of the show.
That is so cool. That is so cool. Yeah, I didn't know anything about that, to be honest with you. But you are the second person who told me about it, like in the last 2 weeks. So I'm going to have to do some research and do some digging, because I'd love to see how they wrapped everything up. And I appreciate them doing that for the fans, because the fans deserve that. They deserve that. These networks, they got their own agenda, man. They got their own agenda. If stuff ain't making money, it ain't making sense to them.
That's right.
And that's the bottom line.
And have you done any fan conventions, or have had opportunities to go to Comic-Con or do panels about the show? Or?
I have not had the opportunity to go to Comic-Con, but we did have a fan convention after the show had wrapped. We had one of the fans had kind of organized the entire thing. So they had the press out there, and we did a fan. I remember I was pregnant with Justice. Yep. so we had a fan convention, but that was the only thing that I've been to. No Comic-Con or anything.
You've been so generous with your time, and it's so much appreciated. One of my standard closing questions is as follows. I ask everybody this question because everybody is just blessed to have such smart, interesting people on the podcast. Everybody has something to offer, and the conversations are just so rich. So my standard closer is as follows.
Okay.
If you had a time machine, and you could go back and give your younger self some advice. It could be your younger self from a week ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago. What have you learned so far that you would like to tell your younger self?
What have I learned so far in my journey that I'd like to tell little April?
Or slightly older April, or high school aged April, or
oh my gosh,
April of last week, 2 weeks ago, whatever April you would like to
I would like to tell the younger April that there are no limits. The only limits that you have are the ones that you put on yourself. Don't limit what it is that you can accomplish. Don't limit yourself. Break the chains of limitation and just go for it. Reach for the sky. Reach for the moon. Just go beyond your wildest dreams. You experience what you expect. Change your thought process and expect greatness. And greatness is what you will achieve. Hey, that was kind of prophetic there.
There you go. I think we got to start collecting these and put a book out, and you can have some pearls of wisdom, and you can also have some exercise advice and some mantras to get people like me who drink too much soda off the Coca-Cola can, get us off the high fructose corn syrup, and you can transform some lives. You got the exercise and the wisdom.
Well, thank you, Chauncey. So do you. You have the wisdom, too. Such a wonderful, wonderful spirit and very intelligent person. And I'm so grateful that you had me on your show. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you very, very much. So if folks want to catch you, they can watch you on the Oprah Winfrey Network, If Loving You Is Wrong, which is on tonight, on Tuesday. We're recording this on a Tuesday. Any other future projects you'll be working on? business ventures, things you'd like to share?
Yeah, well, right now, like I'm just working on promoting the show, spending time with my family, enjoying this present. Like I tell everybody, the present is a gift. The present, y'all write this down. The present is a gift. So I'm just enjoying this Tuesday right now, enjoying talking to you, promoting the show, and I know that more will come just by continuing to put out positive vibes and being kind to one another. Spreading love, man. That's what I'm doing. Working on spreading love.
So, Miss April Parker Jones, I want to thank you for your time and your sharing and your honesty. And I also want to thank your daughter, little Miss Justice.
Justice, did you hear that?
Provided some ambiance
Mr.
and some positive energy as well.
Thank you.
There you go. We get a thank you from Miss Justice as well. So, April, I greatly appreciate it, and thank you for your time.
Okay, Chauncey, take care. Be blessed.
And you too. Wow, that was some good fun. I really enjoyed talking to April. And it's just weird, and I still smile when I had the opportunities. I talked to the great Bruce Boxleitner. I got some other interesting folk from Hollywood whose work I like. I'll be talking to in the near future. You'll hear it on the podcast. To talk to somebody through the magic of technology that you've seen on television or in a film. That's just weird. Well, they're real people. And it's also really inspiring, and I hope folks picked up on that in terms of April's kind sharing about, she paid her dues, she did her hustle, she was widely trained, and she just got her grind on. But she always has a backup plan to say, okay, if this thing stops tomorrow, if I don't get great opportunities to do interesting things without compromising my self-respect, because that's a big deal too. And I'm glad she was so honest about talking about race and auditioning and identity and Tyler Perry and these questions of entertainment and self-respect. So glad that she did that, because you say, okay, I'm always going to be real. I'm always going to be direct. You don't know. You ask somebody a question in that interview. Say, no, I'm taking a pass on that. I'm not talking about that, because they get you the whole idea. You have the actor, the person we see on the screen. We got the real person. We've got the person the media machine turns them into. And then we have whoever the public wants to believe these people really are. So you never know who you're getting. And April, just as I said, was so cool. Sit down, take the time, and share with us about her work. And I wish her really, and sincerely, I wish her the best of luck in the future. So she continues to move forward and be like, man, you know what? I was talking to her back then. So that was just wonderful and fun. And I hope you guys appreciated it. So a coup of sorts. We'll use a coup for the Ghetto Nerd set. They're folks who just like good, interesting, smart work, good writing, who like comic books, who like good storytelling, who like someone who can spin a yarn. I have spoken with, for the next episode of the Chauncey DeVega Show, the indispensable, the one and only Mr. Joe Lansdale. You may be like, who that man? Who's Joe Lansdale? I was like, well, Joe Lansdale wrote Bubba Hotep, or at least a short story upon which the movie is based. He also wrote the novel upon which one of my favorite movies in recent memories is based, Cold in July. He has written what I think is one of the most interesting crime, noir, adventure. I don't know how to categorize this sort of the southern steeped Texan buddy adventure series, Hap and Leonard, which features next to They Live. I would dare say it's right up there. One of the most interesting fights I have ever visualized in my mind. Now, They Live got the greatest fight scene of all time, Rowdy Roddy Piper. But it happened Leonard getting down with some Klansmen in the South. Man alive. That was an awesome, awesome scene from Mr. Lansdale's imagination. So we talk about so many things, and that was really cool to get him. And it's a fun interview because it's like he's a master storyteller. And I use metaphor as an analogy. I'm giving you a metaphor here. So it's like you get in the car with somebody you're excited to hang out with, and you're expecting to drive, and they're like, no, this is my car. I got the horsepower. Why don't you sit back and be a passenger and you enjoy the sights? Because I'm going to take us on a ride. And that's exactly what Mr. Lansdale did. So I sat back. I let him take over. We talk about his life. We talk about race. We talk about Southern identity. We talk about writing. We talk about the civil rights movement. We talk about his father, who was a shooter. I didn't know that. As I said, it's fascinating. Do research. And sometimes you just talk to somebody and you're like, man, I know why I like your work, because we have similar influences and things that just happen to decades separated that tie us together. So his creativity is a function of his life experiences. And sitting there nodding as he was sharing, saying, yeah, now I can connect the dots. We also talk about Mr. Lansdale's new upcoming work, his TV series based on the Hap and Leonard novels that's going to be on Sundance. I can't wait for that. He has a new movie coming out based on some of his other work with some very famous folk from the great show, The Game of Thrones. We talk briefly about that. And we talk about craft and writing and just life. And his new book actually is going to be about the African-American West and mythic figures like Deadwood Dick and others. So we chopped it up for about 90 minutes. I had to cut it down to about an hour. I'm sure in the archives we'll release the longer version at some point. But man, it was a lot of fun. So next episode of the Chauncey DeVega Show, or the podcast known as the Chauncey DeVega Show, or the epononymously named podcast known as the Chauncey DeVega Show, the one and only indispensable man, Mr. Joe Lansdale, as I said, prolific author, prolific writer, TV, film, short stories, long stories, graphic novels, everything. He's the man. So that'll be something fun for us next week. So, of course, we do the serious stuff. I bring you folk. We talk about public policy. We talk about the color line. We talk about the legal system. And then sometimes you got to switch it up because you got to keep your head clear. Life is meant to be enjoyed. Smile sometimes. Keep the clouds and the rain away. And these fun podcasts are just my way of sort of doing that, to say, man, there's so much out there to talk about, so many things to enjoy. Life, even when it's hard, is meant to be enjoyed if you can. So the greatest way that we can triumph in a culture of cruelty, neoliberalism, austerity, surveillance, is to maintain our humanity. And sometimes we maintain our humanity by having a laugh, by being entertained, by great folk like Miss April Jones, by great writers, storytellers, like Joe Lansdale, and that's what we're doing here. So that's a nice 1-2 punch. So, as is my habit, as is my sign-off, as is how I say goodbye to all of you who kindly tweet, share, download, and support the podcast known as the Chauncey DeVega Show and the website known as the Chauncey DeVega Show. And please, if you can, tweet, Facebook, and follow the website. That's important. I know even if you never check it, go over to that right-hand sidebar and click on the Facebook friend, click on the Google friend, follow me on Twitter because that creates opportunities. Follow the YouTube channel. Put more content up on there. That's where you can watch the podcast. Do that if you would too. I mean, the last podcast episode we had, great Frank Schaefer, that's doing nicely. Tim Wise, Nick Childs, we got some good people up there. So tell your friends if you would. And as is my occasional pitch with the hands open, I want to thank all the friends and supporters of the website who click on that PayPal link. This does take time and energy. And if you can, on occasion, we do a twice-a-year fundraiser. Don't advertise. I've gotten a lot of offers to advertise as of late, people inquiring. I'm not going to do that on the podcast. Important point. The podcast will imminently be on iTunes. I was waiting. We got 20 or so episodes from before, but I got to set up the RSS feed, some other stuff. So we're going to do season 3. So you'll be able to click on that and subscribe, and you get about 10 episodes all at once. So hopefully the episode with Joe Lansdale, that'll be the first one. So I'm looking forward to putting that up on iTunes because more people will get eyes on it because people don't typically go to websites to find podcasts. So finally decided to pull the trigger on that. But if you can, we got some centavos, some silver, some dollars, or 2 or 3 or 10 or 20. Some people throw in more. Hey, show the site some love. Click on that PayPal link as you can because that helps to defer the opportunity costs involved with writing on the site and doing the podcast, which I do love. So, as I say, please be good. Please be happy. Treat each other well. Be kind to our 4-legged friends and our 2-legged animal friends too, and our fish friends and our lizard friends and our bird friends. And just try to do something nice for somebody. Maybe give a homeless brother or sister $1. Maybe buy somebody a drink who's a stranger who looks down. Maybe just smile at somebody. Try to leave the world a better place than you found it. So next episode, Joe Lansdale. I'm Chauncey DeVega. Be well and be good. Until next time.